It is very, very good to be here tonight in this beautiful, beautiful venue. My name is Andrea, and I am a fashion model living in New York. I recently became the first transgender woman to be profiled in American Vogue and to sign a cosmetics contract with a major beauty brand. Beauty is deeper than skin. You may hear this a lot, and probably when you hear a model saying it, you just want to slap her or call her a bitch. But it's true. Human stories are more inspiring than looks will ever be. However, it is often our external shell that decides how we are judged and ultimately divided into groups. I don't know about you, but I feel that I'm more than my external shell. I'm more than tall, I'm more than white, I'm more than trans, I'm more than woman. What I am truly is photogenic. Ladies and gentlemen, you are witnessing my best blue steel. But all jokes aside, I truly feel we should not be defined and placed into boxes based on our personal traits or the labels put upon us. Recently, Caitlyn Jenner, the great Olympic hero Bruce Jenner, transitioned into Caitlyn Jenner, giving the transgender community unprecedented visibility. Since then, the media has bombarded me with questions about Caitlyn, about her journey, and some of them I could answer very easily, and many I could not. Partly it's because I don't know her personally, and partly it's because we have lived two very different lives. But because we have the same label placed on us, and because it's a very trendy label, we are grouped into one. My life has shown me the best and worst of humanity. But more importantly, it's shown me to be very critical of any sort of division or oppression within society. I never set out to be a transgender role model. I simply wanted to live my life truthfully as the girl I felt I've always been. But if I am to use my public position to contribute something, I'd like it to be for unity and the breakdown of judgments and walls that divide us all. So, how did I grow from being a war refugee into an international female model? Well, actually, my most vivid childhood memory took place not very far from here, in Serbia. I was 8 years old and I was walking through town, one hand in my mother's hand, the other in my grandmother's, and I was just a happy 8-year-old and I could not wait to get to the town bazaar because my mother had promised me a donut. And then at one point, everyone froze and they stopped. All we heard was jet engines. So we looked up at the sky, and above us was an American fighter jet. It must have been an F-16 or F-17. It was like a scene out of a Hollywood film, and I guess it could have been a very cool sight. I thought maybe they were filming the sequel to Top Gun. Maybe Tom Cruise would fall from the sky. And it would have been cool if it wasn't so life-threatening. Everybody ran. We ran with them. We found shelter in the basement of a nearby residential apartment building. There, the anxiety only grew. Many people thought we would die there. And then at one point, my mother remembered that my brother was probably playing near the old brick factory situated near our house. She said she had to go. She had to make sure to get him. At the time, this was bad because factories and public infrastructure buildings were all proclaimed targets. I told her, no, Mom, you can't. We parked the car near the post office. You can't go there now. She gave me a very long hug and she wiped my tears away and she left. And I just remember shaking a lot. I closed my eyes and I tried to keep the bad thoughts out, but I didn't know what was worse. Losing my brother, my mother, or maybe the bomb would fall on my grandmother and me. Luckily, we survived that and we were safe, at least until the next bombardment. This was during the 99 NATO bombings of Yugoslavia, a supposedly humanitarian war. I was born to a Croatian father and a Serbian mother in a country being torn apart by a greedy political class that used nationalism to pit people against each other, to consolidate its power and expand its privileges. And the result was a bloodbath. After the bombings, we moved to Australia, and there our lives improved. I got to have my own bedroom, my brother got to have a PlayStation. Materially, things were better. But we soon discovered that in the West, national pride is often coupled with xenophobia. Sure, we looked like we could be Australian, but we didn't sound Australian. We didn't have Australian names. And we quickly learned that it's best to drop our accents as much as possible. I was born Andre and given assigned a male gender at birth. However, I never grew into Andre or my assigned gender role. In fact, I spent most of my early years defying it, playing with dolls, dressing up in skirts, running around with other girls, gossiping about how dumb and stupid boys our age were. Here's a picture of my brother and me. I'm 3 and he's 5, and we're supposed to be flexing, and he's obviously flexing for his life, and I'm probably more worried if these sunglasses work for my face shape. Here's another picture. Once again, observe the differences. I'm 7, he's 9. I promise I was not one of those kids that always wanted to be a model, but this picture obviously begs to differ. However, this sort of behavior, feminine behavior in a boy, is frowned upon in almost every corner of the world. The gender binary is defined as the classification of sex and gender into 2 distinct, opposite, and disconnected forms of masculine and feminine. In the most simple terms, boys like blue, girls like pink, there is no in between, and to cross from one into the other is insanity. My mother and I used to watch a lot of romantic films growing up, and I soon became fascinated by the idea of intimacy between a man and a woman. But this was before the years of sexuality and puberty, so it wasn't about sexual attraction. I would imagine what it would be like to be the girl in the story, to have a man love me and see me as a woman. I was 10 when I first asked her if it was possible to change a boy into a girl. I pretended it was for a school science project or something. And she told me in the sweetest way possible, with true compassion, "Oh, darling, even if that can work, you don't want to do that. Life is so much easier for a man and you can achieve so much more." When I was a little older and wiser, I explained to her that it's not about the benefits of one gender or the other. My mind, my identity was that of a woman, and I could do nothing to change that. I could hide it and live a sad life, or I could do something about it, and I did something about it. In the US, the American elite has lifted identity politics to a level above class. So it appears that the main division in society is gender, or race, or identity, and not class. Since the 80s, state-sanctioned identity politics has assured the elevation of only a small layer of certain minorities into the upper echelons of society. For example, there are more African American politicians, celebrities, and millionaires than ever before. And same goes for the gay and lesbian community. However, the working class African American families in many ways are worse off now than it was in the 1960s. The poverty rate has steeply increased since 2000. It now hovers around 28%. Likewise, youth homelessness pervades the LGBT community. And in 2012, 29% of LGBT adults experienced food insecurity. Recently, yesterday, the US Supreme Court legalized gay marriage. And this has been, it's been a very long struggle in the US by the gay movement for this, and this should be celebrated. But while we celebrate, we need to remember that democratic rights are not the be-all and end-all of equality. Yes, it's very important that we have the right to marry, to vote, to be protected from discrimination, but people also need jobs. They need access to healthcare. They need access to education. Identity politics is also very trendy, and there is nothing trendier now in the US than being trans. But the problem with treating social issues as fads or as trends is that it makes people in power feel like they're being very accepting of differences without actually doing anything to change conditions on the ground. Progress should not be limited to the elevation of the few. Real progress means elevating all to an equal shot at life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But for that to actually happen, we need to revive a culture of unity. I'm not talking about erasing differences. I'm talking about unifying past them, unifying past gender, past race, past identity. Recently, with Caitlyn Jenner's coming out to the world, it has been incredible to see the level of public support and respect by the public for her story and her journey, which I never thought was possible. In fact, the only criticism I've heard that isn't religious dogma or coming from pure backwardness pertains to the fact that she comes from a place of privilege. Because of her place in society, her ability to live a truthful life is eased. Her experience, and even mine, these are dreams for most of the transgender community. My transition, including surgery, prescriptions, doctor visits, has cost me more than $50,000 US. And this is life-saving medical care. But that's the low figure. I mean, in the West, transitions usually cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. But even the low figure of $50,000 is an inconceivable amount for most people in the community. In 2007, 15% survived on less than $10,000 a year. So where does pride fit into my story? Well, from a young age, I rejected the idea of national pride, and basically pride in anything that is simply a fact about who I am, something I was born with rather than something I achieved. In fact, I do not want to minimize the importance of feeling absolutely no shame about who you are. I've come to a place where I feel no shame about the fact that I was born different. But my hope is that in the future, the cameras that follow me do so because I've truly achieved something, because I've added something to humanity, to progress, not just because I'm trans or because I appear genetically blessed. What I hope you take away from this tonight is that it's important to look at the world critically. It's important to challenge your ideas, preconceived ideas. Let's not rush to pat ourselves on the back when we've seen some small changes or some cosmetic changes against a backdrop of stagnation and decline. And perhaps focus a little less on how different you are from me or from someone coming from a strange culture or someone living a very different lifestyle. And perhaps focus a little more on what we can achieve together, united by our shared desire for a better, more just world without war, without inequality, without oppression. Thank you.